Welcome to the 4th ASEAN EU Cooperation and Scholarship Day. You are now in the reception area. Here is the list of events we have prepared for you. Click on the schedule button to get a reminder on your phone or devices. Just dropping in to see what's on? Find this little red button to see which event is currently live and just join the fun. Take the time to explore the expo area and see what have been prepared for you. Here on the booth panel, you can have a one-on-one Q&A session with our exhibitors. Download all the information that interests you, join workshops and sessions, or try out the games. Each session also has its own booth panel for you to interact with the speakers. To have a conversation with an expo representative, click Share Video and Audio. The booth moderator will allow you to have a conversation with them. Have something to say? Head on over to the Voice of Youth booth. Pick your virtual background and overlay and say it with a photo or video. Don't forget to follow and tag at EU-ASEAN when you post it on social media. You might be the lucky winner to get a special hamper from the EU. We're so excited to have you here, and we wish
Well, hello. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the 4th ASEAN EU Cooperation and Scholarship Day 2021. My name is Liguina Hananto, and I'll be moderating today. We have a great lineup today. We're going to talk about data and computing. Everyone has a computer nowadays, but what we're going to talk about today are computers that is at least 1,000 times faster and more powerful than the one we are using. They are the Avengers of computing, and they are called the High Performance Computing, HPC. Ooh, sounds very interesting, very high tech. So why do we need these supercomputers, and what is their relation to disaster management? And of course, we will also talk about career and study opportunities. Do you know that the career and opportunities you'll be facing in the next 20 years have not been invented? So let's find out more. The EU has had many experiences and expertise in processing big data with HPC. This includes genome sequencing process in the development of COVID-19 vaccines. Imagine how much the humanity has been helped by this. Also last month, EU and ASEAN held the first ever HPC school for ASEAN scientists. Here's one of the top 10 graduates of the first virtual HPC school, Miss Marianne Leong. What else requires big data processing? In a disaster-prone region like ours, the answer would be disaster management. We are joined also by L.A. Dimai Ilik from AHA Center, ASEAN Coordinating Center for Humanitarian Assistance on Disaster Management. Where are you, L.A.? Come and join us. And also Regina Yulia Yasmin from Indonesia's Meteorology and Geophysics Agency, the BMKG, who was also one of the top graduates of the HPC Virtual School. Hi, welcome, my dearest. How are you all today? I'm really wishing you all in good health. LA, Marianne, Regina, good to see all your friendly, smiling faces. The international flavor is in the house, people. So let's talk to each of you one by one, because we only have 30 minutes. So it's going to be a short, powerful talk with all four of us. First, I need to talk to Marianne. My signal seemed to be not very helpful. I definitely need those supercomputer at this hour. Can you hear me, Marianne?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so just need to sacrifice my face on the camera there. Marianne, if you can hear me, when you joined the HPC school, was it the first time for you to use the HPC? Because I've never heard about this, so this must be very interesting.
No, it's not my first time. I started using HPC 7 years ago when I did my PhD. But at that time, I didn't know it was called HPC. I just knew it as supercomputers. Yeah.
Supercomputer.
Yeah.
So how interesting is this? Do you use it for big data? What does it actually do in your field of work?
Yes, I actually use big data, mainly satellite data. So I use it for hydroclimate research, specifically to understand the movement, cyclical movement of water and heat from the atmosphere to the land and back. Okay, so it's basically the water cycle and cloud formation.
Super interesting. So are you saying that this HPC will provide so much benefit for the work that you're doing right now with disaster management?
Yes, exactly. Because HPC, they have tremendous power in calculating at a very high speed. So yeah, definitely, it will be helpful in for prediction, really, as well as to understand. We keep having a lot of data generated by satellite, so we need to process it to understand what's happening, yesterday, today, and then we can predict the future. Yeah.
All right. What do you think about the HPC Virtual School? Because this must be very beneficial for a lot of people to understand more about the supercomputer that is now known as HPC. What do you think about the virtual school?
Yeah, I think it was brilliant. I really like that they introduced both the latest and upcoming HPC technology on our very first day. It actually, to me, felt like I was time traveling to the future, where I sort of get a glimpse of the future landscape and possibilities. So that helped me to frame the rest of the school days in that what will be taught in the school or what I will be learning from the school was preparing me for that future. And the school also covered a comprehensive range of disciplines that can massively benefit from the lightning fast speed as well as cost effectiveness of HPC, be it in physics, biology, chemistry, public health, as we have seen in the pandemic, and the weather and climate disaster mitigation. So I think the curriculum that we had gave both generalists as well as specialists a well-rounded exposure to the multi-purposeness of HPC, if I can describe it that way. Yeah. Oh no, where is our host?
Fascinating, Marianne. I've always thought the HPC is about the future, but now we can use it for different sorts of benefits for today's application, especially in disaster management. Can you hear me properly, or am I breaking out again?
I can hear you perfectly clear. Yeah.
I'm going to move to LA now. Hi, LA. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Oh, thank God you can hear me. You don't need to see me. You just need to hear me. LA, this is very interesting. HPC has many different applications, one of which is the realm of disaster management. So how does the AHA Center process this data? We are a region that is quite vast with a lot of disasters happening around us every day. So this must be very useful in your everyday activity.
Yes, thank you for that question. So mabuhay and greetings from Manila, the Philippines. Again, thank you for this opportunity to provide a glimpse of how technologies such as HPC is being used to support the home of One ASEAN, One Response, or the AHA Center. Disaster information management is one of our core strategies and pillars to translate the spirit of One ASEAN, One Response into concrete actions. On a 24/7 basis, we coordinate and collaborate with the National Disaster Management Organizations, or NDMOs, of all 10 ASEAN member states in the areas of risk assessment, early warning, and disaster monitoring. To carry out this huge responsibility, we actually use different technologies like Earth observation, geographic information systems, or GIS. We also closely monitor early warning information from National Meteorological and Hydrological Services and national seismological centers across the region through the Internet of Things or IoT. Innovation is at the heart of our center's disaster management efforts. And on this end, we have developed an ICT roadmap for disaster management for 2025 and beyond to guide the alignment of ICT solutions to the regional disaster management agenda. We also established the AHA Center Information Management Network, or AIMNet, to serve as a platform for the region to collectively enhance our disaster information management and information systems interoperability. This, among others, are our present practices and strategies.
This is the moment when I would say, I love how human come together, but human come together plus the future of technology, that's when we really can work together, wouldn't it be? What are the challenges, LA, that you see in the application of HPC, especially in disaster management? Because in Indonesia, of course, we have a lot of volcanoes. I know that the Philippines have, and also Indonesia, we've had some experiences with cyclones. How do you see the challenges of this application into the practice of disaster management itself?
Your observation is perfectly on point. ASEAN is one of the most disaster-prone regions in the world. In the past 121 years, 1 in every 10 disasters across the world happened within one of our 10 member states. That's out of the more than 190 countries globally. And we are also home to some of the world-class disasters. We've had the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami. We've had the 2008 Cyclone Nargis in Myanmar, the 2013 Typhoon Haiyan in the Philippines, as well as quite recently, the 2018 Central Sulawesi earthquake, tsunami, and liquefaction in Indonesia. Needless to say, the disaster management community in the region is exceedingly busy. Between January to June 2021 alone, there is an average of 3 significant disasters per day in the ASEAN region. Response to these disasters doesn't start and end in a day. It can take weeks, months, or in catastrophic and complex events, even years. And by the end of the week, the month, or the year, there's already another disaster event that requires attention. So to summarize, disaster managers has a long to-do list in the region, and it just keeps on getting longer. This means that disaster management communities usually don't have sufficient time and opportunity to step back, look at the bigger picture, and innovate. Technological applications such as HPC is often left to technical specialists. And sorry to say, but not all technical specialists have the necessary grounding and fundamental understanding of disaster management work. As a result, we have very excellent technologies, but is detached from reality. And that is one of the biggest challenges that we have presently. And that is also why it is key for disaster management practitioners and technological innovators to be at the same page all throughout the development process.
Thank you, LA. That's a very good point. How do you put the connection between human with the latest technology? It's not always a smooth learning curve, but hopefully the virtual school will be there to bridge the gap, I would say. Would you say? Now I'm going to go to Regina. Hi, Regina. Where are you based? I have to ask you that.
Hello, Ina. I'm here.
Hi, Regina. Where are you based?
I'm based in Jakarta.
You're based in Jakarta. I was going to assume you're in Jakarta. How long have you been working with the BMKG?
Well, it's been 8 years till now.
It's been 8 years. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so you're nearing into your decade of service with BMKG.
Yes.
Let me ask you this. How does BMKG use HPC for? How is it being used within BMKG? That would be very interesting.
Yes. Thank you, Wina. It is very interesting for us. So we use HPC in BMKG to increase the capacity of multi-disaster early warning system, which involves Indonesia Tsunami Early Warning System, INATUS, Meteorology Early Warning System, MUSE, and Climate Early Warning System, CHIUS. Because in BMKG, we are responsible to produce, process, forecast, and disseminate early warning system related to meteorology, climatology, and geophysics. So we cover all for Indonesia.
It's a big task. It's a big task. So the supercomputer must be very useful to support your work every day.
Yes, absolutely. In related to meteorology, HPC is being used for running numerical weather prediction models for weather forecasts, and also running model for seasonal forecasts for climatology. We are producing these forecasts at the district level and plan to improve them to the village level. It is a very high computation, and the higher number of grids or better forecast resolution means the higher computational needs, so that we absolutely need HPC to run our operational needs related to meteorology and climatology. Well, in geophysics, we are using HPC for running pre-computed tsunami scenarios caused by earthquakes from tectonic activities. And we also need that HPC for running on the fly simulation for tsunamis that wasn't caused by tectonic activities. Maybe it is caused by volcano eruptions like Anak Krakatau volcano in Sunda Straits, and also for tsunamis that were not in the pre-computed scenarios that we have. And we have to complete the process only within maximum 3 minutes, because as you know that Indonesia,
Okay, Regina.
Yes. Yes. Hello. Hello, Ina.
Sorry, Regina. I have to cut you down. Yeah,
Yes.
is this the most interesting thing you learned at this virtual school? I was gonna ask you, because that sounds very interesting. But what is the most interesting thing you learned at the HPC school?
Well, I learned so much about HPC system design and its applications. Yeah, as Marian has mentioned before, that there are various implementations of HPC in bioinformatics, disaster management, earth sciences, and AI applications. So I learned a lot about analyzing the HPC performance, as well as its implementation in the in for disaster simulation with using augmented reality and virtual reality. We also have access to the fastest computer in the world, RIKEN from Japan. We have practical experience using their supercomputer. So that was very fascinating, very inspiring for me, especially, and for us, the students of EU-ASEAN Virtual School this year.
Fascinating. These are all very new things for me, but even for someone who is not working closely with supercomputers, I'm finding this as a very optimistic view towards the future, especially in disaster management. We have questions from the audience, and I think this one can be answered by LA. Are you ready for this, LA? So here we go. Here's the question from Joseph Stefanus Matondang. One of the worst avoidable disaster within ASEAN is haze. What may happen in Indonesia, that may happen in Indonesia and Malaysia and Singapore and surrounding region? What is the state of the art for the disaster management in ASEAN to address the problem? Is that something at the AHA Center can answer, LA?
Unfortunately, Hayes is currently not within the mandate of the Center. There is a separate ASEAN Center mandated to respond regarding Hayes.
Thank you. We don't know that which one is under AHA. So this is very interesting. This is the second one. I do apologize if I pronounce the name not the right way. From Pierre Son Chantarau. What kind of consequences that things can mainly affect and cause the disaster? How can we solve these problems to avoid from the disaster? And what do we need to do to save our planet? Who would be able to answer that? Maybe we start with LA again?
Sure. This is like $1 million question, you know. When we're talking about...
Yes. Well, let me repeat. The consequences and things that mainly affect and cause disaster. Let's start with that. Natural phenomenon, I would say. What do you think, LA?
When we're talking about disasters in particular, we have to understand the fundamentals of disaster management, which is basically talking about risk. When we're talking about risk, it's basically a function of the vulnerability of the community as well as its exposure to the different hazards. So when we're talking about, you know, the exposure to the different hazards, these are in the likes of Indonesia. There are so many volcanoes, and the country itself, as well as the Philippines, is very tectonically active. So, you know, earthquake is like a way of life. For Philippines and Vietnam, for example, they are along the path of the cyclones, as well as in the areas of Myanmar. So, you know, these are the different hazards that pose threat, you know, 24/7 all throughout the year in these countries. And then the second function that we have to look at is the vulnerability. You know, whether the people are residing in areas that are vulnerable to the effects or impacts of these hazards, like flooding or even, you know, breakage due to the movement of the earth. These are the things, in addition to their location where they live, we also have to look at their capacity. You know, there are some, for example, in the case of Singapore, they have a very high level of resilience. That means, you know, in case there could be something that may happen in Singapore, they can quickly respond to it as well as recover from the impacts of such disasters. However, in the case of, for example, the Philippines, in Indonesia, there is a lower level of resilience in these member states. Hence, there is a slower period of recovery. And the issue with these differences in the hazard exposure, vulnerability, and resilience of the countries at the regional level is how organizations such as the AHA Center can help balance the different capacities of the member states. For example, Brunei Darussalam and Singapore, they have very high resilience levels. However, fortunately for them, they have very low exposure to natural hazards. So that means, in our terms, we call this resilience surplus. They have extra resilience capacities that for the center, we want to export this extra resilience capacities of Singapore and Brunei Darussalam, for example, to other countries which have higher exposure to hazards but lower resilience levels, like Indonesia and the Philippines. Over to you, Wina.
Thank you, LA. That was very interesting because I think that question relates to Regina's answer about how the BMKG used that to do simulations on tsunami, and that's how high technology can help us to work better with the disaster. It is mostly caused by natural phenomena, which we cannot control. We have last question for everyone in the panel here. As the world becomes more digitized and we are producing more data than ever before, I think the use of HPC soon will be inevitable. What would you suggest to those who are interested in data processing? Let's remember, we talked to a lot of the audience are students who are basically pursuing career maybe in the next 3 to 5 years. And I always remember that one of my teachers told me 20 years ago that the job that I would be working on in the 20 years to come would not be invented yet. So what would you say about data processing in relation with this kind of high tech that is now available? Let's start with Regina first.
Okay, thank you, Ina. So, for those of you who would like to pursue a degree or would like to know more about HPC, parallel computing, etc., that is related to HPC and its applications, you can join the next HPC school. I know that EU ASEAN, in the framework of e-ready, and also the ACM, Association for Computing Machinery Europe, conduct trainings, HPC trainings every year. So you can join the training next year. And also you can check the PRAISE partnership for advanced computing in Europe. You can check on the website, and you can get to know more several center of excellences that may fit to your researches. Thank you.
Thank you. Mariam, what would you say about this? Because you told me 7 years ago, you already worked with supercomputers during your PhD program. So what would you say to young fellows out there who are interested to pursue more knowledge and maybe future career in data processing?
Yeah, sure. As you said, Rina, the jobs that they will have in 3 to 5 years are not yet created yet. So in the very first place, I think from the education point of view, education providers should come up with new courses that would address the things that would be, visionaries think are important, especially in terms of disaster management. Okay. So from what I see, but I'll get into that a bit later. But for the students' perspective, I think it would be helpful if they know what they're passionate about, the cause, or so, for example, is it in fashion, sustainability, environment, climate? What is it? And then try to explore from there what kind of data processing skills are required for them to, so that in that way, they not only have these technical skills, but they would also be doing something that is very closely related to them, like spiritually, I would say. Okay. Unfortunately, there are, like, I'm in the earth science realm. So unfortunately, there are not many data processing or data analysis, data science towards environment or earth science. That would usually be in the master's level. However, given the increasing technology, and even our students from the from primary school, they've also started learning technology. So we should start to introduce at the degree level. I mean, bachelor's degree level. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
I love your point of how data processing is just one stream, but nowadays I think it's more like multidisciplinary, isn't it? So it can be one data processing and then connecting it with something that you love doing. Your field right now, all of you are in disaster management, but it can also be in something like fashion, music, game developing, data processing, and other discipline can be intertwined, and then that will create the future job. That's where we're heading. LA, your final thoughts on data processing and how this will affect the future of our fellows who are out there watching and being curious about the HPC. Let me know your thoughts. Final thoughts.
Yeah. HPC is not the future anymore. Like what Marianne experienced in her academic journey and what Regina and the colleagues from BMKG Indonesia are already doing. HPC is here and now. In most disaster management communities across ASEAN, the use of high-performance computing is still in its infancy stage. And this presents huge opportunities for practitioners of and experts in HPC. Currently, all MDMOs and the AHA Center are enhancing capacities and capabilities on the use of big data and artificial intelligence to support disaster management decision-making. As capacities and capabilities of ASEAN member states improve, the drive for self-innovation increases. This means that demand for in-house and homegrown talents will likely increase in the near future. If you are interested in this kind of technological application, strong educational investments are required. Experience in disaster management work is also necessary. This will help you remain grounded on how these kinds of technology can be used in this industry. But my most important piece of advice is about passion. Disaster management work, whether it's from the frontline perspective of our rescuers, strategy development of our planners and leaders, or back-end support of our technological innovators, disaster management is about saving lives and alleviating the suffering of our people. We are not in disaster management to make a living. We are here to help everyone's lives worth living. Disaster management is about helping people. Thank you, everyone.
What a beautiful way to end our session today. But of course, we're Asian enough to take a picture of the four of us before we close this session. So for those of you who are at the backstage, would you please help me out here? I need to take a picture with my colleagues here, Regina, LA, and Marianne. Let's do this because we love what you guys are doing. I really appreciate what you guys are doing. And it's true, isn't it, LA? It's not about just the rescuers on the front line or the innovators and leaders and management system at the back. It's about saving lives. That's beautifully said. Marianne, let's do this. All right. I'm just going to count 1, 2, 3, and then pretend somebody is really listening to me to take the picture of us. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, and one more time. 1, 2, 3. Thank you, Regina. Thank you, LA. Thank you, Marianne. If you want to know more about HPC initiative and get more information on the HPC Virtual School, please head on over to the eReady booth in the expo session. And if you would like to learn more about the AHA Center, this is a fabulous organization, guys. They also have a booth in the expo section, and you can continue our discussion with LA at the AHA Center booth. I was so moved by that. This is about saving lives. This is what I talk about. Human comes together. That's how I move the world. We also invite you to visit the Voice of the Youth booth. Tag at EU in ASEAN, that's EU in ASEAN, on your social media channels and share your thoughts on today's session. The best photos and comments will be shared on the at EU in ASEAN channels and receive a surprise hamper from us. I have seen one of those hampers. They're pretty awesome. Thank you so much for joining our discussion today. Do come back later.